Yeah, man. Welcome to the show. This is a pleasure. We are here live on the Bump, guys. So here and there, I got a special guest with me here today. His name is Harposills, and welcome to the Bump, man.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate being here. This is an awesome time.
Nice.
Cool.
So yeah, actually today's a special day. So today is actually J Dilla's birthday.
Yeah, yes it is.
So kind of crazy, right? Like. I put out a playlist and it was like all hip hop, and I was like, oh damn, it's JD's birthday.
Yep.
So happy birthday, J Dilla. You know, the one and only, rest in peace. But
Of course, man, JD.
yeah, when's the first time you heard like a J Dilla song? Do you remember it?
I'm trying to think. The first time I heard J Dilla, I feel like J Dilla is somebody I always knew about.
Okay.
It's kind of something you always had an ear for. But I remember when I really, when you realize that kind of person is the godfather for so many different things. It was funny. It was the weekend of prom, and I went out to my cousins, and I don't know, we did all this stuff, and at the end of it, I think it was on like a Sunday night, we ended up going to what was it, like the cinema bar around here?
Oh, okay, yeah. That, like, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and we
Alamo
watched
House or something like that.
something like that,
Yeah.
and we watched My Vinyl Weighs a Ton, or Our Vinyl Weighs a Ton,
Okay.
and then that one, you're just like, man, you're so engrossed in it, and you're like, man. So I think that's like, but definitely in high school, I started doing my research, and I know Mad Lib and JD was kind of like the ones that you're like, man, these
Yeah.
are the guys. And you have the J Dilla like concise aspect, and you have the Mad Lib that's just the gritty
Yeah.
tone and like that feeling, like that gritty feeling, you know?
Right.
I can't think of the first J Dilla song I know. I know I listened to a lot of Slum Village before knowing
Oh, okay.
there's
Cool.
J
Yeah.
Dilla. So stuff like that, and then you go back and you're like, man, this dude's nuts.
Damn.
And then there's so much of a deep catalog that you can just
Yeah.
revisit.
Like we were talking about on one of the podcast episodes where I think it was with Moody. He was talking about how, like, you know, that song "Do for Love" by Tupac, like Dilla originally produced the drums on it.
Okay.
And he didn't even get a credit, I guess. So like, I guess that was like one of his very first like early productions.
Interesting.
It's crazy to think, right? You're like, dang, that was Dilla, like, you know.
Yeah.
But it's such a classic song, you know.
It's also another crazy aspect of that is that he was such a hometown kind of guy in Detroit, and I think who was it, House Shoes, who started dispersing his tapes out.
Yep.
And you see the movement and the traction of the tape back in like the mixtape days, and they're like, "You got a Dilla tape?" And they're like, "Yeah, I got a new Dilla tape," and he's just putting out all these beats, and it's like you see the modern day influence in that, even to a guy like Knowledge, where it's maybe Bandcamp, but it's the same thing, and those same mixtapes are peddled out to the masses, and
Right.
the word of mouth gets around, and you're like, "Have you heard?"
Yeah.
And it's a dope thing, man.
Yeah, no, I feel like it definitely is. Like, that would be the modern day equivalent. And, you know, that's how I kind of, like, found my way back into hip-hop was, I think my friends put me on to, like, Griselda and, like, those guys and Conway and West Side Gun.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, that was, like, my dabble into it. And then I dove back into, like, that world of beats and discovered guys like Budgie, went back on the Alchemist things. So it's pretty tight. It's definitely timeless. I mean, to this day, I mean, so many people have been influenced by him. You know, guys that I look up to like Joe K from Selection, and, you know, inspired so many other artists, you know, and to this day, you know, it still has an influence, which is crazy.
Oh yeah, it's nuts. When you listen to a Dilla beat, you know it's a Dilla beat. You can hear like the bounce to it, the wave to it, something about it. You just feel it in your body, and it's and then when you hear Dilla rapping, it's like a whole other story.
Right.
When you see those videos of him just getting on the mic, and the second he steps up, the place is just nuts.
I saw a picture today. It was on Twitter. I think I liked it. It was like him in the wheelchair, like with the microphone and everything. Like, that man loved music so much that he was still touring in a wheelchair, like barely able to like even stand up, and, you know, on dialysis the night before doing shows. Like, he literally, to the day he died, like, did what he loved.
Yeah. That's the eerie part of the Donuts album.
Yeah.
Is that you can listen to it, and every track feels like this posthumous conversation where he's just talking about death or love for the music or the feeling, and you listen to it, and you just, when you realize the context of it all, you're like, this is a nuts time.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes it so genuine. That, like, you feel his heart and soul in it. And it's other guys like MF Doom, like, you know, he doesn't care about himself, like the persona. He's talking about the music, like, so he sends imposters and everything out to the shows. You know, he's like, it's about the music, that's all that matters. But dang, I think the first time I heard Dilla, I want to say it was definitely Donuts, and I think it was. I love the Common album, B.
Yeah.
So a lot of the beats, I was just like, "What? Who is this?" Like, I forgot what the like that whole album is just amazing. It's like a masterpiece. That's like the one album I would give like a 5 out of 5.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but like I think that was my early intro. I was kind of late to the Dilla scene, but that was my like first kind of introduction to it.
I'd say I was too. I remember even back in like 8th grade, freshman year of high school, when Mac Miller and Wiz Khalifa were really getting out there.
Oh yeah.
And I think some of the early mixtapes that Mac Miller put out when you dipped into the catalog, he had some Dilla beats on there too.
Damn.
And so you're like, all right, you see the influence again, and so you can rerun back to that, you know.
Yeah.
You get older and you're like, wait, I didn't realize I was listening to Dilla even back then during that time, but.
And it's like that with most producers, like Ninth Wonder. I used to love like all his music. I mean, he's a guy that even Kanye was inspired by. There's a Little Brother song, I See Now, and he's like, beat by Ninth Wonder, and he's like, I ain't gonna lie, you got some hot beats. And that was like Chipmunk Soul Kanye, you know? So that was tight. But yeah, he had a beat with like one of my favorites, like the Destiny's Child, Is She the Reason? That's like one of my favorite beats. But you like see like they're doing all these songs to these people, you know. I think Jay Dilla did some songs from Busta Rhymes too. I believe. I could be wrong, and I know people are gonna kill me for it, but
that's the issue with the podcast. The speculation. Everyone's gonna be like, "Man, this guy didn't do his homework."
Need a fact checker. But, but yeah, so like that was what reinvigorated my love for hip hop, and I've been kind of going back, and that's how we met online. Was basically through your Instagram. You shot me over one of your tapes, and you're like, "Hey man, have a listen." I think this was like very early podcast days. I think
possibly, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember I don't think I ever even done like an interview yet. And yeah, you were one of the first people I hit up. So
that's
thank
dope,
you for coming, man.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you want to talk a little bit about your project? You know, what was your process behind it? Like, you know, when you were making it.
I wouldn't say it's too articulate. You know, I feel like I could come on here and be speculatory and talk about all these like this guru.
No, but what were you feeling? What were you going through at the time?
I'd say I'm trying to think of all the songs. Like, you know, you create something and then you're already on to the next one, and so that's kind of where your mindset is at. But for that one,
I know you had like the Bone Thugs.
Yeah. Okay. So that was the oldies. That was the oldies volume 1. Yeah. On that one, I wouldn't say that there was a lot going through my head. It was just a nice appeasement for the day. You know, you work a 9 to 5 and you come home and you feel like this is my life. I'm here every day. Or maybe in my case, working in a kitchen. So sometimes it's a 2 to 12. You know, you get out at midnight and you're like, all right, this is my life right now. Possibly going to school and doing stuff like that. But it's like, shit, is this where I'm at right now?
Yeah.
And so I think taking certain loops and flips and kind of, you know, creating these sound waves is just something for you. It's a nice like ablution at the end of the night where I can find an excerpt from a song and loop it or groove it together, cut it whatever sort of way, and just let it go over, and that's how you fall asleep that night. You know what I mean? And
exactly.
you just able to rest to that. But part of it's just something like I wanted to bob my head to. I'd say some of my biggest influences, aside from J Dilla, MF Doom, Madlib, one of the biggest ones would have to be Knowledge. Okay. I remember when I was younger, I think like 18 and like my first apartment, that's what I would do. I would get excited when the next Knowledge tape would drop.
Yeah.
And so did you ever see Breakfast with Ringo?
Yes.
Yes, the one with Knowledge on it.
Yeah. Didn't they do that's the Mind Design one too, right?
Yeah, so it was Mind Design, and I think the Boiler Room like commissioned him to have little at-home Boiler Room sets. Yeah. And he kind of discusses the process, but Knowledge was just head down and just throwing on these flips and doing them real time with Action Bronson and everybody, and you witness that in person. You're like, this dude's just chilling, smoking a joint, like doing this amazing stuff. And so that had a large influence on me. And so just seeing the way that he would integrate different sounds, the way, you know, every other day it's hard to miss like a new Meek Mill flip on Knowledge's Instagram or, you know, something to that effect. And so when you have something kind of groovy going down or a nice bass line, whatever it is, you give new context and new life to rap lyrics or something that may be different. I know on one of those it was like Slim Thug and Destiny's Child, I think.
Oh wow!
I think it was on one of those. On the old.
Is that like I Need a Soldier, or is it like something like that? No.
No, it was on the oldies tape that I put out, and it was just like a real like slowly traversing background time, and just it kind of gave this different effect, you know, that it wouldn't have had otherwise. Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of it, kind of like how Knowledge is. You can hear a Meek Mill song, and it's gritty, and he's rapping, right? And then you hear some like wavy kind of background. Maybe it's like an 80s break, and you just get a completely different vibe from it. Exactly, yeah. And you don't realize it, and you have a tape going, and you're like, this is going for a couple hours. I don't even... And it's so relaxing and therapeutic, and I think that was the biggest thing for me, just finding something I could bob my head to, and I guess my 18-year-old self would be like, damn, that's tight. Yeah, it was tight, and I remember the tracks that I remember were like the Bone Thugs ones, and I was like the Ecstasy Flip. I was like, oh, like that's crazy, like, and then obviously the Smashed Up one. Oh, I appreciate that's like a favorite everywhere I play it, so that's pretty tight. But yeah, I'll put the link in the description. But thank you. I love that. But you know, is that like where you were kind of influenced by like that 2000s, late 90s kind of, you know, groups or rap acts? Yeah, definitely. So I think growing up, my mom actually played a lot of Bone Thugs and Harmony, played a lot of Jodeci. Ooh, and so there was a great contrast, you know. There was a lot of groove. The next R&B, a little rap. Oh, of course, a ton of R&B. And my dad was a DJ, and so when I was at his house on weekends or whatever, he introduced me to everything, you know, from Janet Jackson, Tevin Campbell, CeCe Peniston. Tevin Campbell, wow. And I would just shuffle through all of his stuff, his records, his CDs, and look through all the Jodeci's. That's when I think Jamie Foxx was putting out his albums. Wow, yeah. And so some nice, you know, R&B times, and I think that definitely had a large influence on me concerning like the blending of some R&B grooves with some more rap lyrical acts. Yeah. But yeah, you know, sometimes I take some of my favorites and be like, man, I'd love to hear this in a different context. I like to hear it. I'll hear a rap song and I'm like, man, these lyrics are hard, but I'd love to hear this and just kind of groove slow down, groovy beat. Yeah, yeah. You know? And I actually forgot, but I started working on that tape because I had contacted. I'm not going to put his business out there, but I contacted somebody that's in the music business a little higher up. And I think he had liked a couple of my posts, or he was watching my Instagram stories. Okay. And I was like, man, I haven't been making music lately, like, but this guy's watching it. Like, I got somewhat of a platform. And so one day he posted an Instagram story, and his Instagram story was that 3 6 Mafia song, The Late Night Tip. Yeah. And so he posted it. I think that's where I kept getting the name confused from. The late night probably the Late Night Flips. So the genesis of that tape was that one single track. Yeah. Because he posted it and he was like, man, it's my favorite 3 6 song. Yeah. And so before I even looked for an acapella, before I just woken up in the morning and I saw that and I was like, this is my opportunity. Yep. And so I messaged him, I DM'd him, or I reacted to the story, whatever it was. And I was like, man, can't wait till you hear the flip I did on this one. Yeah. And I hadn't made anything. I didn't do anything. So I was like, he actually replied and he was like, oh, word? Like, let me check it out. Oh, okay. So then the pressure was on. So I was like, oh, shit. Yeah, I was like, man, I got to send it to this guy by tonight. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, yeah, man, I got to work, but I'll send it to you tonight. Yep. And so I did have to work, and I got off work that night, and I went to a coffee shop across the street, and I was just sitting there for a couple hours like, all right, I need the right ones for this. Yeah. And so luckily I looked up the acapella, and it was right there, and I was like, all right, this means I'm supposed to do it, right? Yeah. Like, find the acapella, and I'm like, well, this is all on me right now. Yep. And so I go and I download a couple different things, and I come home and I'm working on it and just kind of flipping some stuff, throwing some grooves on. And then one was working, and I was like, this is dope. I did it. Like, I can send it to him. So I did that, and I was like, I'm not just going to send him one. So then I get another one. Okay. I was like, let me do a part 2 where Juicy J comes in and kind of flip it a little bit. And so I did that. I was like, all right, maybe do a little bit more. So I turned it into like a 3-part song. It kind of snowballed from there. It did. And so I was like, all right, let me just send this to him. Let me see what he thinks. Let me see how he feels. And so I sent it to him the next day, and I was like, all right, let's see. And he hits me back, and he's like, bro, that's fire. Just a ton of fire emojis. And I was like, oh, shit, word? Dang. Like, you think it's tight? Wow. So that for me was like confirmation because, you know, I've been making music since I was a teenager. And, you know, you go and show it to your homies at school or you know, put an earbud in somebody's ear, and they're like, that's tight. That's cool. Like, man, you're doing it. But it's hard to allocate that emotion and universalize it and say, well, if I'm doing something that's cool, I'm assuming that the large masses are going to think it's cool as well. Yeah. And it's messed up because the opposite is so often true. if you think something's bad or if somebody says something's bad, you automatically universalize that and say, oh man, I'm not doing that well. It's not doing that great. But you should be able to push that both ways and say, if I think this is cool, that should mean enough to me. Yeah. But yeah, that cosign was like, oh, dope. All right. And so I think I had another one in the back burner, and I didn't actually put that on this tape. I'll show it to you in a little bit. Okay. But I intended on putting it on the next one. I wanted to do a music video for it and kind of get it. Okay. Get some visuals for it. Get a little vibe for it going. But it was an Aaliyah. I did a rock the boat flip.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got to hear that.
And so, yeah, I did that one. And I had showed that to a couple of people. And they were like, yo, this is hard. Okay. And when somebody says like, oh, that's cool. You're like, oh, thanks. But when someone says like, hey, yo, can you send that to me? That's when I'm like, all right, it's tight. Like, you must like it. And so I sent him that one. I was like, all right, cool. And I put it on cassette. Okay. Because I had planned on putting a couple of these tapes on cassette and then seeing if people would buy, doing shows or little things like that. I haven't gotten around to it. But I did have it on cassette, and I sent it to him. He's like, oh, that's hard, too. Nice. And I was like, all right, cool. So that was a little validation to me to be like, all right, what I'm doing is not in vain. You know, I spend my nights after work making music, you know, doing soul flips, whatever it is. Right. And it means something to me, but it also shows that it means something to somebody else. Yeah. And so that was big to me. And so after that, like I said, that was the genesis for all that. And things just kind of kept compiling. I think a City Girls song popped up, that one, and I was like, oh, word? Like, I think it's funny. I was at my mom's house, and I just had my laptop out, and I'm hanging out with, like, my siblings, and then my mom's asleep, so I'm being quiet, and I heard it, and I was like, hey, I should do that. Yeah. And so I did it real quick, and I showed my little brother, and he's like,
it was such a different spin on it, because it's like, act up, you can get smashed.
Yeah, and it's very relaxed.
And I was like, ooh, this sounds so smooth.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's absolute favorite. But, like, I love that. I love that you put your own like spin on it. Like, what would this sound like? Pitch down or slow down or you know, this little soul beat. It's different, and you know, I love that sound. I know guys like Beside You and stuff like that. Like they have like some of those 2000s flips. Like they'll flip like a Soulja Boy song.
Oh, like the Crank That. And like, Hey Baby. Yeah. I think that's a big one that I even forgot. But that I have to give credit to for inspiring so many people, but the Gods Connect channel on YouTube. Okay. Have you checked that out?
I think I've heard of them. Yeah.
That's where like Beside You and Knowledge put out a lot of their visuals for everything. But I mean, it's called Gods Connect, and that's not a lie. It's like you gave God the aux cord real quick. Like, you know, some of those flips are insane. Yeah. But that's another aspect of things, and that's why I started incorporating visuals to mine as well. A lot of them got taken down off of YouTube for copyright, and so I'm like, all right, I need to maybe do some animating things or just record some different things. But that one right there, you know, it was something that if anybody, you're getting ready for work, getting ready for school, you're just hanging out, you have friends over. And that was a big thing for me is when I would make music, like made that tape, made this tape, it became a social thing. You know, you have some people over and you're hanging out and you're automatically the DJ because you have Ableton or, you know, you don't have to have much. Yeah. And so I would just start compiling things, and it's so easy to traverse that and just start throwing little things around and be like, all right, let me try this out. And just getting the groove going because, you know, you imagine, like, you watch movies like House Party and all that stuff, and you see the socialization of it. And I feel like that's an aspect of life that we don't really get too often because of technology. Yeah. And so many people are alone together. You could be online, just like the Instagram thing. You know, we can be connected, but we're so far away and people aren't necessarily leaving their houses or going to visit one another. And so music to me was cool because it became that socialization where you can have people over and that's the entertainment. And you don't need to, you know, all stare at these screens. Everybody's conversing. Yeah.
Music is the thing that brings people together. It's like the glue, the foundation. And that's why I like it too. And that's, you know, I called my podcast The Bump because it was like that feeling when you're like at a show, like a Kitchenada show or whatever, and you just hear the speakers like just bumping, you know, and that's that feeling that you're dancing and everybody's having a good time, you know, not just a little kickback where everybody, like you said, is in their corner on their phone.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
But yeah, it's just such a good feeling, and you know, especially when you talked about like having a random person reach out to you and be like, oh, that was dope. Yeah. It's one thing for your homies to say like, oh yeah, that's cool or whatever. Yeah. But it's one thing for just a random stranger to say, that's fire.
Yeah. It was a good feeling. Especially because I'd follow this person still, and I'll see, and I'm like, wait, you working with so and so? Yeah. Or like, wait, that's your homie? And I'm like, oh shit. And it's not one of those things like I wasn't like, most people in that moment are like, hey, can you show this? Or like, are you going to put me on? I was just like, that's cool. That's enough.
Yeah.
Like that kind of had to be enough for me. And we were speaking about this prior to this. It's just not working on a result basis.
Yeah.
Not looking for results. But when you make the music, how you feel, the bump you feel, that time you have and the people around you, if everybody's together, that to me is enough. And that's a point that I had to get to, because I know you're in high school, kids these days, on SoundCloud, everybody wants fame. Everybody wants money.
The likes.
Everybody wants the likes and all that. And so I get
everything else that comes around it rather than the music itself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They want to live this hollow body where they're producing something and it gets them this tangible thing.
Yes.
But I think a place that I've had to get to recently is just knowing that happiness or joy or whatever you're looking for out of this is going to be intangible. You're not going to find it. It's not going to be on Instagram. It's not going to be on Twitter. You're not going to open the door and it's going to be there waiting for you.
Yeah.
That's inside. Yeah. You got to create that for yourself. And so that's another thing that, like, with the music, for me, that's what I get from it. And if it can offer anybody else that, all the more, know? Like when you would send me those videos and you're playing a couple of the songs at a show or a get together, I'm like, that's dope. Like, that feels great because it's like the song and the music is doing its intended purpose. Like, there's people hanging out, and in those moments, they're not, like, for a second, somebody may be closing their eyes or they're rocking to it a little bit, and they're not being elsewhere. They're being present.
Yeah.
And I think that's crazy that you can do that. The second you make a song and you feel it, you're automatically present.
Yep.
You're not there. You're not over here. You're not any which way. You're not at work where you were an hour ago. You're not mad about your placement in life. You hit a little groove and you're like, oh shit. And you're there. And I think that's major these days.
Yeah, I get that feeling too. Like when I'm DJing and I'm like, oh wait, hold on, let me bring that back. And then I mix a song. I did that recently with the Kate Renata song and like a Walter Gibbons track, like a disco 70s track. And there's this like little breakbeat. It's like, doo, doo, and I was like, oh wait, hold on. Let me figure. Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't wait to play this. Whatever. And so like to me, it sounds like you're doing it for the right reasons. You're doing it because you enjoy it. It makes you happy, and it spreads other people happiness.
I mean, that's the hope. And I mean, it's not always immediately there. I think it is at the core, but like I said, I was in high school. I wanted fame. To me, that was the only way out of, where we're at. I was like, well, this is how you get out. It's either that or a 9-to-5 job and you're working construction, or you're working
a job that you basically hate,
some manual labor, and you want those benefits and you start a family, and, life snowballs. It happens quick. And so I was like, well, this is my way to shortcut that. I can get fame.
It's your way to slow it down. Like,
exactly. It's just like what you're doing on the tables. You're slowing it down just like that. But you want to take a second. You want to take a dive back, and you want to provide for your friends fun. You want to provide for your family money. You want to do all these things. But yeah, a lot of that can cloud judgment and cloud creativity. There's been nights when I get nothing done because I'm so focused on what I don't have or where I'm not at. Yeah. And that's so
or maybe like, what are people going to think about it sometimes,
Yeah, exactly. You're like, are people going to like this? Or you go on Instagram and you see what everyone else is listening to or bobbing their head to, and you're like, well, shit, maybe if I don't have commonality with that, maybe I shouldn't be in the circle.
Yeah.
But again, these are all dividers that people are putting up themselves. Reasons for people to not be together, to not socialize, to not, compile with one another and be like, yo, fuck that. Like,
no, yeah, it's tough, especially like if you're not already in whatever said circle. It's kind of hard to break in, It's such a tight, close-knit world. And we talked about in my last podcast about like appearances and like you don't quite fit in, or you're the new guy, who's this? But I feel like music is the one intangible object that brings people together.
Yeah.
Because, you could be... like in our case, you send me a tape like randomly on Instagram, I play it and I'm like, oh, what is this? And I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Like, I love it. Like, send me some more. And it's kind of like that universal language, right? There's a guy that I used to really fuck with. His name was Gaslamp Killer.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, until he got, I don't know what happened exactly with the sexual allegations, but I used to love his stuff. And I saw him the last time, it was like at Coachella, and he was playing Dilla, surprisingly enough. He's like, I got this band from Pakistan, and it's like a Dilla flip. and they're playing it like on like their instruments from their homeland.
Oh, word.
And it was crazy. I don't remember what song it was, but I was a little too lit out there. But it was just amazing, and that shit stuck with me. And I was like, God, like music is really this universal language. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you ever scoured the YouTube video section when like you're like deep in the deep section of YouTube on the music, and I'm like looking up like Pink Floyd covers by like these traditional Jewish people, like. And I'm like, what? Like that music is universal. Mm-hmm. I listen to French music. I don't know what they're saying, but it sounds beautiful, you know, or Italian music or Japanese music, you know? And I feel like, you know, that's an experience that you can't buy. That, you know, yeah, you can go somewhere, but, you know, music will put it together.
Yeah.
You know, you're in a cafe, you're at a dance, whatever. Mm-hmm. People are going to feel whatever the music's playing.
Oh, yeah. Especially these days. People can't go without silence. I mean, people can't eat without a mukbang in front of them.
Oh,
you know? Like
ASMR.
Yeah, like it's a completely different society and generation that we're in. But, you know, on the contrary of that, it is, you know, convenient that music is that thing. People will turn on anywhere you go. Anytime you get in someone's car, you get to see into their vulnerabilities for a moment. You know, you get to see what music they listen to. You know, maybe these songs that have touched them or affected them in some way just by that. You know, you go into someone's house, you see their playlist, or you hear what they're doing or stuff like that. You get a deeper look into somebody, and you can't do that with much else. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you could make an argument for it. You can look at somebody's attire and you can say, all right, well, I know a little bit about you. But music, you can understand, all right, there's something in this that person identifies with. And is there something I identify with? Yeah. You know, it's such a common ground, and I feel like it's crazy. You know, it's in the air. It's like internet. It's like Wi-Fi. Yeah. You don't know what the fuck it is. You don't know where it's at. But it's locking us all in together. Yeah. And so I think it's just recognizing that and making that intangible thing tangible, and just be like, you know, let's get together. Let's do it. Like right now, I think that was crazy. Like I told you previously, I'm not really in any scene. I'm not really doing anything. Like I haven't been there. It just hasn't been what I'm doing. But like this right here, just from an Instagram DM, and now we're kicking it. Yeah. And, you know, talking about music. And again, it's finding more common grounds and just that empathy for people and being like, shit, there's how many people on this planet? How many are we connecting with? How many are we not? For whatever reason. Yeah. Everybody's got their head down, headphones in when they're walking around at the grocery store or anywhere. You know, I think it's just a different time.
Exactly, man. Yeah. But we were talking about like a couple things earlier, and I want to talk about this because we kind of elaborate a little bit, but I think we were talking about like the whole thing about like the sampling thing, right? You're talking about you're like, oh, some people will shun upon sampling. Like, what's your opinion on that, and like, how do you feel about it?
Yeah. So sampling is a big one, as I was telling you earlier. I always think about it. I think it's like a Red Bull interview, but it's with Madlib. And somebody asks him, they're like, how do you feel about people critiquing the fact that maybe you're just sampling or it's just loops? And he's like, dude, I'm the loop digger. Like, it's in my name. Yeah. What the fuck do you expect? Yeah. And I love that. And so I make sure everything I post online, anything, it's like loops, grooves, blends, anything. Like, at the end of the day, there's some originals that I make. But if I blend two things together and it sounds nice, I'm going to let you know about it. You know, I might send it that way. And so I had no issue with sampling. I think it's great. You know, most people's favorite songs are samples of something else. Yeah. It's another rabbit hole you get to go down.
No, exactly. And or not even in necessarily the idea of sampling, but like I always look at it in music, like everything's been done. So to a certain extent, you probably heard something that you were inspired by, or maybe you took it and maybe indirectly created something out of it. So like I was at a Tame Impala concert and they were playing I think it was the song It Feels Like We're Only Going Backwards, and that riff and the actual like the chords were the same chords from Guns N' Roses' Knocking on Heaven's Door.
Oh, okay.
So coincidentally enough, it was at ACL, Austin City Limits. So they were playing on one side, Closing the Night, and Guns N' Roses was playing on the other main stage. So they closed it out with that song, and they're like, and Kevin Parker's like, don't tell anybody, but those are the same chords as, and he was singing, and he's like, nah, you know. But yeah, it's like, I feel like to a certain extent, things have been done, and as long as it's not like a blatant rip off. I mean, it's not Vanilla Ice and like Queen, you know, and Ice Ice Baby, you know. But like, and Pharrell talked about it. Did you see the Pharrell interview about with Rick Rubin? on his podcast or
show? I don't think I have.
So Rick Rubin has a show, and he brought Pharrell in, and they talk about the whole Marvin Gaye thing. I don't know if you heard about him being sued for that song Blurred Lines.
I think I had heard about that.
Yeah, so he got sued and he lost. Okay. So like that set the precedent for like what people can sue each other for and everything. And at first, you know, I was kind of the person that was like, oh yeah, it just sounds pretty much identical, like similar. And then he breaks it down and he's like, you know, I feel like I failed the people of music because I should have brought in experts who know about music and know that what I did was I didn't copy this song. I copied the feel. So it's that feeling of like that Marvin Gaye song, you know, when you hear it, it takes you back to that, you know, or it makes you feel that way. Yeah. You know, it's like your grooves and everything, your loops, right? You know, you like you said, we were talking about how like you had a Bone Thugs song. It was that ecstasy song, like I feel so violent, fucking with the. Yeah. It's a hard song. Yeah. And then even it's kind of slow, but then you like put your own spin on it, and I think that's what's creative about it. It's not. I don't view it as someone ripping it off. I view it as somebody putting their own spin on it and being creative with it.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's nothing wrong with paying homage or, you know, showing love to something else. How many times does that happen? You know, you see, this isn't the only field that happens in. This is just the field that it's most prevalent in. People are aware. They can see it. You know, they can see it, they can hear it, they can feel it. But I mean, if you talk to an actor, how many of them wanted to be De Niro? How many of them study Raging Bull? How many of them want to be a director like Greta Gerwig? You know, like they watch Lady Bird and they're like, I want to emulate that. Exactly. You know, so many things. It's all over the place, and you can make the case for anything. But if it's something that has molded you and made you into the person you are, I don't think there's anything wrong with appreciating that. Yeah. I understand when certain when money comes into play, and something may belong to an estate and, you know, to that effect. But I think everyone is well enough aware to know that's how the game, especially now, they're cracking down on everything. Everything's a copyright issue. Everything is considered plagiarism, or you stole it. So I understand it, but I mean, you know, when you're doing something just for the love of it, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what it is. It's the intent, right? You created it because it was something fun to you. It was a project. You know, you're not stealing money out of people's pockets or stealing credit for it, you know? It's not going back to that Dilla example. It's not Dilla's drums being sped up and the guy just basically called it his own, you know? And you know, well, Dilla gets fucked out of it, you know? Yeah. So he doesn't get any royalties and stuff like that, no credits. So, you know, it's not that. It's something different.
I think when it comes into play when you're calling something your own. You know, you can't go and... You could DJ a set. That's your DJ set. That's your routine. You're doing what you're doing. But if you play a Dilla song, you can't say, this is my song. You know, but you wouldn't do that. Like, no one would do that. Yeah. And so I think that's where it kind of gets a little skewed, you know? Yeah. So I've seen instances of deliberate plagiarism. I've seen that before. But, yeah, if you're not doing that. You know, it's funny because the song's titled Blurred Lines, and it comes down to that. That sometimes there are blurred lines in play, and sometimes there's not. Sometimes people... And I think the higher up you get, the more you got to worry about. Yeah. You know, I can do these loops and send them out every which way and every which direction, and nobody's going to care. Yeah. I'm not making money off it. It doesn't matter. But when you are making millions of dollars off something, people are going to look at you. Yeah. People are going to want something from you.
Exactly. Well, like, what was your first exposure to music in general, like, when you were growing up? I know, like, mine was, like, listening, like, you know, Spanish music and also, like, Radio Disney stuff. Okay, yeah. I'm not going to be ashamed to say it. I think I mention it all the time. But I always ask my guests, like, what was your first exposure into music?
I have a funny story. That reminds me of a funny story when I was a kid. When I was really tiny, I was like, Mom, there's this new Kidz Bop out. I need it, because I thought it was like a compilation record. Yeah, yeah. So I was like, there's some good songs coming on these days. Like, I was like, I'm going to get the top 40 of the radio. I want that compilation for my little CD player in my room. And she's like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I want it. So we go to the store, I get the Kidz Bop, and I was like, this is it. I'm going to have Usher on here. I think that's like when the 90210, whatever.
Oh, so you thought that was like a Now CD, basically.
Yeah, essentially. And so I was like, all right, let's do it. And I pop it in, and I hear 12-year-olds singing my favorite songs. And I'm like, wait, what? I was really confused, and I was so mad. And I'm like, Mom, we got to go back to the store. I don't know what this Kidz Bop shit is, but I don't want it.
Yeah.
And so that was a funny moment of mine. But when I was a kid, I was always surrounded by music. Like I said, my dad was a DJ. Mm-hmm. And so he always had his turntables out. We'd do family events, similar to you. I remember going to, barbecues, cookouts, everything. A lot of Spanish music playing. There's a drunk Thea singing mariachi in your ear while she smells like Bud Light.
Yeah,
and you're like,
beer in his hand,
Yeah, exactly. Just don't spill the beer, you know. A lot of that as a kid. But yeah, like I said, everything. Like Jodeci. I remember being in the car. My mom would drive, and she would play like. I remember when the Ludacris. Was it the Chicken and Waffles, Chicken and Beer?
Oh, yeah, Chicken and Beer.
When that one came out, my mom was bumping that. So just, it was all around me at all times. And, you're a little kid in the back seat, and you want to sing along to it. You want to rap it. And
to the window, to the wow.
Yeah.
I was like at 16 years old.
Yeah, exactly. But even younger, 4 or 5 years old, my mom was playing that. My stepdad at the time was playing that. He played a lot of Bone Thugs. He played a lot of 3-6 Mafia.
Nice.
So all of that was just constantly around me, and I loved it. I just enveloped in all of it. And so, like I said, when I go to my dad's house on the weekends, I would just shuffle through all of his CD cases and his records, and I'd be like, I got to hear every single one of these.
Nice.
And we would do this thing when I was little, really little, like still in a car seat, and he would be like, all right, what's the 8 count? And so he'd play a song. He'd play like some Mary J. Blige or something. Like, what's the 8 count? And so I was just like bobbing my head to like 1, 2.
Dang, that's pretty cool.
Or he would ask me something like he would, because he always, do you know Promo Only?
No, I don't think so.
Promo Only, I think it's just like they disperse it to DJs. You can sign up for it.
Oh, okay, yeah. They're like kind of like those not for sale.
Yeah,
DJ
exactly.
Records, whatever.
Yeah, so you'll kind of get things before everyone else.
Yeah.
And like the new radio songs or whatever's, popular. And you'll get those. And he always had them. He always had every version. I think it's like a couple each month. Mm-hmm. And so he would get those, and I would listen to him, and then he would always quiz me. He'd be like, all right, I'm going to play a song. Who is it? And so I'd be in the back seat, like in the car seat, like, it's Mary J. Blige, I think. Or I think that's Shaka Khan. Or,
Shaka Khan.
Yeah, so stuff like that. So, that was always just deeply ingrained in me. Yeah. It wasn't anything crazy. I was just like, this is just what's normal. This is life. And then as I got older, obviously got into high school, I started looking more into like jazz or country or folk, Bob Dylan, Loretta Lynn. That's when you feel like you're spiritual and you're like, this is me. I'm going to figure this out. And so, like all the rap acts, lots of rap music, whatever was out at the time. I remember me and my cousin, we'd go on Dat Piff. Yeah. And that was big. You're like, what's going on? Dat Piff this day? Or like, what's going on? Or, Lil Wayne dropping the No Ceilings mixtapes.
Yeah. Wiz Khalifa's, the Mac Miller's days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, throughout all of that, it was always just. I remember DJ Quick was a big one. My mom always played DJ Quick. Yeah, that was her one. My mom was always. Yeah, exactly. I remember I had my headphones on, like my little iPod, when I was like in bed one night, and I was like, man, this shit's crazy. Yeah. And I think that's some of the earliest that I was able to identify a sample. You know, because there's some other stuff, like I remember on like the earlier Jamie Foxx albums. He's doing covers of what song is it? It's like a Family Affair song. I think it's like him and someone else. They're doing covers, or even like Mary J. Blige doing Sweet Love, and covering things like Shaka Khan or Sweet Thing and all that stuff. So then that's when I was able to go down to my rabbit hole and be like, all right, what are these sampled from? Right. And then you hear things like Dilla or Madlib, and you're like, oh, people are doing this. Yeah. People are taking this. And so you're able to study it not only in sample culture, but in popular culture, where it's still sample culture. Yeah. It's just not as easy identifiable. Right. And so that was really my time when I was like, this is me. And so you sit up online all day making little like mixtape CDs and you put them in your CD player, and you're like, this is the one, this is it. Nice. And you're trying to learn all the lyrics to Bone Thug songs, and you're like, I fucking don't know what they're saying at this point. So it was that fun exploratory time when you're just delving into everything. But early on, I always it all in, I always knew I wanted to do something with it. And so when I was a kid, I wanted to rap, and I was like, man, I'm going to do this. And so I'd rap. I'd write my little songs on the bus and do all these things. And then had a lot of friends that did a lot of music. I had a friend in high school. His name was Javad. Shouts out to Javad. And he was a rapper, and I was like, this dude's the craziest in the world. I heard him, and at 15, 16, I was like, this is your Illmatic right here. Damn. And I was like, the world has to hear it. Unfortunately, he didn't get the response he wanted because nobody does immediately.
Yeah.
But everybody in the neighborhood loved it. We're like, man, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And we fucked with it so heavy. But yeah, he kind of didn't release as much music, and I think he went somewhere else. And I know now he's releasing some more music. So
that's good. I was just getting slowly back into it.
Yeah, but that was a point when I was like, oh, like you can go somewhere with this. And
is that when you started? Like you're like, I want to make music. Is that that point?
Yeah. I mean, even when I was a kid, my dad had some software he gave to me. I think it was called like Cakewalk.
Yeah. Wow. Cakewalk. I think do you know the band Chromeo?
Yeah.
They still use it. In one of their videos, they show them making a beat.
Oh, really?
They have it like on a Pentium 2 computer. Like they still have it to this day. Yeah. They're just so used to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So my dad gave me Cakewalk because he knew I wanted to do something with music, and I wanted to be a DJ, but he never fucking let me borrow his equipment. I'll be like, Dad, I'm in high school.
Did he mix on vinyl or?
He did when he was younger, and then he had like the CDJs, yeah. And so he would do that, and I would go with him. We'd DJ some stuff, but I was like, let me take it out, like, let me go to high school and do this, and he fucking never let me do it. So I was always mad about that.
Yeah. So you got Cakewalk, and
I got Cakewalk, and that was, dude, I was probably in like 6th grade, and I was like, this is tight. And so I remember I would mix like Usher songs, I'd mix like Beastie Boys songs, anything I can get my hands on. I was like, Slow It Down, Chopped and Screwed. I thought I was DJ Screw, whatever. I would just do that.
DJ Screw.
And then I remember I'd just put it on my iPod, and I'd go in the car like, yo, Dad, check this out. Check this out. And so I just thought I was the coolest dude ever.
That's awesome.
6th grade. And then from there, I think, then I was like, I'm going to be a rapper. And so I'd go online and you find tight beats and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on. And these guys are asking money. I'm like, dude, I'm like 14. Like, what do you expect?
Yeah.
And so then my cousin was like, why don't you just get FL Studios?
And make your own.
Yeah. And I was like, wait, can I? And he's like, yeah, just get the demo version.
Damn.
And so I started doing that.
Okay.
And I had my little run of beats that I would do. Freshman year, I made some. And it was just like, oh, I can come home and do this. So that was like, instead of going home at night and studying music, I was like, now I can create it too.
Wow.
And so I started buying records and all that. And so I did FL Studios probably until the end of high school, maybe.
Yeah.
Probably used that until the end of high school. And I made some songs, and I was able to start sampling on there, even though it was a little complicated.
Yeah.
At the time, I think it was called Edison or some program in there. And so I was doing that, doing like jazz loops and showing it to people. And at that time, a couple people from the neighborhood I was living in at the time, they were like, oh, this is tight. Or I'd come over to people's houses, and they're like, oh, can you show us the backward saxophone one? And I'm like, all right.
Backward saxophone.
Yeah, so I'm like, all right, I got you. I'd show it to them. And that's when people, from the outside started enjoying it, the production aspect.
Yeah.
In high school, I would like rap battle kids, and there'd be a crowd, and we'd joke on somebody's outfit or something, nothing too serious.
Yeah.
And so I got attention from that, but then eventually I was like, no, I'm not a rapper.
Yeah. I
was like, this is fun. Like, have you ever heard Dumbfounded?
No.
So he was like a battle rapper in California. And so I would always watch his videos on like King of the Dot or something. He wasn't on King of the Dot. He was on something else. But I would always watch those. And I'd be like, man, this dude's crazy. And he was the only one that was like joke rapping.
Yeah.
So he would talk shit and kind of make fun of him in like a cool way, but he wasn't like, I'm shooting guns and they're always doing this. And he wasn't that guy. And so I was like, well, yeah, I'm not that guy either. So I'm not going to do that either.
Yeah.
And so I just go to school and kind of like make fun of people or rap about whatever. But then I was like, yes, this is not my thing. And so then on FL Studios, I was doing that. And then I got, what is it, like the MK2, the machine?
Yeah, machine, yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
Ish actually uses that, Aaron.
Yeah, so I got a job at Walgreens, and I ended up saving enough money, and I got like a new laptop, got a machine, and I was like, cool, ready to go. Did that for a little bit, and I made a couple different things off of that. That some friends liked. I started integrating with different people, seeing kind of what their process was. I met a guy who made music on the machine, and he was like, you should get one. Like, why don't you try it? And at the time, I was like, you want to make beats? I'll rap. And he was like, just try the machine. Yeah. I was like, all right. So I tried it, and I was like, cool. For some reason, first, I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm just not going to do that. And then I did, and I liked it a lot. Nice. And then shortly after that, I ended up getting Ableton. I cracked Ableton. Yeah. And I was like, yo, this is it right here. Right. And so from then on, it was Ableton every night, nice. Whether you're making something from scratch or you hear a song on the radio or you play records and you're like, I'm going to cut that up. Nice. And you take that and just run with it.
Yeah. So that was then, and now we're here now. So I know you got some music for us that you got ready for us to play.
Yeah, I got some stuff.
I can't wait to hear that Leo one, actually.
I can show you that one first. Yeah, I can do that one first. Some of it are in sessions still.
Okay.
Because I'm fucking lazy. I don't bounce a lot of sessions.
Yeah.
But I do have stuff. I can show you some stuff.
Yeah, if you want to play some grooves and whatever you got. Hell yeah, man. I'm excited.
Whatever, man. I'll play it up.
Yeah, man. I love it. Thank you so much for coming.
I appreciate you having me, man.
To the music. And yeah, guys, let's enjoy.
Thank you. The next one is I want to be more like R&B kind of focused, maybe.
Now listen, I've been single for a while now, and I've been kind of lonely. I'm looking for somebody to talk to, love me, someone who can hold me. Is that you? I'm looking for somebody I can call to, looking for the only one that I can give my all to. Tell me that it's you, what you wanna do, make a move.
This is a T-Pain and
So I seen a lot of dead bodies. They train bro like it made by a dead body. I got some real haters, got a lot to say about it. See what's so broke, they need to go to church and pray about it. I pray that don't burn a helmet, probably Gucci County. They put some